social emotional development. In my professional life, I have seen the shortcomings of the education system preparing children for the world in a social emotional way. As kids are put under more and more stress, these kids aren't in the education system that I grew up in, that you all grew up in. There is more stress put upon them.
That's time.
Oh, goodness. All right, you need to take care of that.
So the three things that I see, stability. And stability is a constant that we need in order for children to thrive, right? We put them in stable environments, the same classrooms, day after day, doing the same time frames over and over, because it's required for learning. A stable environment is extremely important. Well, that stable environment also needs to be there for our teachers and for our administrators and our community. The high turnover rate is an issue. It's something that we have to do a little better with. We can't have that. It's very tough for our teachers to really get in the swing of things and do their jobs really well when their jobs get changed every year, the goals get changed every year. In addition to that is trust. Trust is a relationship problem. We have to have trust between the taxpayer, trust between the board, trust between the administration, the teachers, the parents, the children. We all have to trust that we are in this together and that we're all working towards a common goal. From speaking to a lot of people, that trust isn't there. They're constantly worried, is there another motive? Is there something else going on? Do they have my child's best interest in mind? That's a problem. It's a problem. So we have to build trust. And how do we build trust? Through transparency, through honesty, through communication. And my third one is that communication. When we speak to each other, when we learn from each other, we gain a lot. We gain a lot out of having those good relationships. When communication comes home from our professionals at school, I shouldn't have to have a PhD in order to understand what's being sent home to me. That's the whole reason why we have educators to begin with. They teach the kids and they also teach me. So I understand what they're doing with my child. What's going on today in school, tomorrow, next year, what are you working on? Again, the more that we build that communication, it will build the trust and the stability.
So since the role of Board of Ed is really twofold, oversight and fiduciary, to me the most critical thing prior to addressing any educational issues is to stabilize the administration, which the current board has started to do with the appointment of the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the board administrator. These appointments are critical as they will support and help to focus the search for the Director of Special Services, which is currently going on, as I understood from yesterday's meeting. These three leaders, in addition with the other building administrators, should guide the discussion and decisions regarding which educational issues to address with faculty, staff, board members, and the community. With the educational issues identified, priorities, goals, action items, and outcomes are developed. The board then can work with the leadership team to develop a responsible and sound budget plan to support those goals. As for me, generally speaking, the three educational issues that should always be in educational leaders' mind are: one, teaching the students how to learn, meaning discovering how they learn best, being open-minded to new ways of learning, and becoming successful learners. Two, meeting the students where they are, taking into consideration their level of their interests, level of motivation, strengths, and challenges. And finally, three, support the students to help them to meet their goals.
Chair, did you have this question?
No.
Okay.
Okay. I believe it is the role of administration to directly address the educational issues of the district. And I believe the board is there to support and improve the recommendations of this superintendent in addressing issues. Dr. Tunamian, to me, is committed to this district, and I believe in him, and I believe in his vision. He is creating a central office administration that is working well together, that is committed to this district. He still needs Director of Special Services, which is a big position to fill, and quite honestly is one of the hardest ones to fill. And hopefully the district will have success with that and able to find someone that can commit and be here long-term that this district needs and deserves. Some of the concerns that I do see going forward include consistency among the elementary schools. The district has started with grade level articulators, and there's a lot being done already that has never been done in the past, and that was always a concern of teachers, that they weren't able to communicate with each other. Another area is the special education department, and no one is hiding. We all know that it needs a new direction and some consistency. Looking forward to the audit that the board supported and committed to funding through PCG, and their recommendation should be in by January, and hopefully that will be a step to move the district forward in that department. Instructionally, we have made great progress in our language arts, and that has been a focus. I do believe math instruction is an area, based on the scores that we saw last evening, that is the next direction that the district would like to go in. There's piloting of 2 different programs this year, and I am looking forward to seeing which one is chosen, and hopefully that is something that can increase those scores, just like language arts has been moving forward.
Okay. Next question, Ms. Curriello.
Please, louder. It's
I
okay.
apologize.
My husband.
Question. If community members, including parents and/or staff members, have concerns that the administration is unwilling to address or bring them to the attention of the board, what would you suggest the community members do to acquaint the board with these concerns?
Well, you know, in my current role as PTA president of Dwyer, I'm so used to kind of grabbing and going with concerns and trying to address them as best as I can. But I do recognize that, you know, sitting as a board member, that there is a chain of command, and trying to do something like that would do a great disservice to the parents. So I think really the first step is to try to understand the concern and ensure that the parent has taken the necessary steps, such as, you know, have you spoken with the teacher? Have you then spoken with the principal? And then directing that parent to potentially the superintendent to ensure that they're following that process appropriately, as not to create a disservice to them in getting their problem resolved or considered, or you know, being able to have a discussion, a meaningful discussion with somebody who can actually provide that support.
Again, I am disturbed by this question outright. Why would taxpayers feel uncomfortable coming to their elected officials? Right, that's the premise of the thing. And it's also a tricky question, because as you mentioned, there are policies in place that prohibit us acting one-on-one with people. I think it needs all to look at. We need to be able to work with folks. But as a person who cares, let's go with the premise of the question. A person who cares about other people, and having dedicated my life to helping those who will feel frustrated or left out, we need to build relationships and trust. It's that simple. It's something that hasn't been done. And encourage them to bring items to the board's attention. I want to put them in touch with groups of people. Sitting at that meeting with special ed parents the other night really was a great place. You know, if I met someone who was struggling with those needs, putting them in touch with those moms that were there that night would be a great way to start. There's comfort in those numbers. I also think this is a question that we need to work on as a system based on trust that allows for conversations at board meetings, outside of board meetings, to happen. That we are creating an environment that isn't toxic and nasty. I was involved in town politics for a little bit and went to those meetings, and if you've heard anything about them, they're terrible. So I figured the Board of Ed would be a little bit nicer, and it's a little bit better, but there are times where it is not. And we need to create an environment that is welcoming.
So, as elected officials, our ears should always be open to whoever has concerns. That should be there. It doesn't mean that we are no longer parents, and we're no longer involved in the community. We're here as representatives. You're choosing to be the voice. So I believe that every parent should have the ability to come to board members and bring things up. Most people like to solve things at the lowest level. They're not looking to immediately make things extremely, well, blow things up. That's probably the easiest way to say it. So when they go and they use the proper channel, and that proper channel doesn't work anymore, or they're running out of options and they don't know where to go anymore, well, that's what we're here for. That's why we were elected. We're supposed to be able to guide that to go in the direction that our parents want. So why would we ever shut them out? We wouldn't. So if teachers are having issues with resources, if their boss is a superintendent, absolutely. It's not our job to mix in with the day-to-day operations of what's going on in the school. But it is problematic if we find out that the individual that's responsible for the whole district isn't going in the direction where our parents want. Well, then that means we need a change. So personally, I believe that faculty members and parents, our constituents, should have the opportunity to come to a board member whenever they feel. And it's our job to be able to provide guidance if they went in the wrong direction. And if not, and they're in the right place, then guide things to go the way they want.
So similarly, yes, I think, being elected, I think it is our responsibility to keep an open mind and listen to those who we serve. With that in mind, though, board members have a very specific, by law, our responsibility, and which I talked about in the last question about oversight and fiduciary and not being operational. But if a community member, teacher, whomever had gone and addressed the appropriate school leaders and have gotten no response, then it is my responsibility and to do my due diligence and figure out where and why there was a communication breakdown, and then we address it at that point. So, but there's always, and I would always encourage using the board mail. It's a way to document, what has happened, and I think it's a way for communication if you can't, you can't find one of the board members, at your convenience or at that time. So for me, I think, the lines of communication are open, whether it's personally or via the board member, the board mail, which is made available to the public.
As a board member, we have to adhere to a code of